Over the weekend, I watched a masterclass on how to start homebrewing and what to consider when creating a new class. Well, that really gave me the motivation to start working on a Cardboard Cleric subclass. Let's dive into it together. When creating a class or a subclass, there's a lot to consider. Especially with the cleric, there is a whole belief system built into the whole deity thing. What does the domain entail? The most important question to consider is which deity to serve and what principles you want your character to embody. This is going to be the overall arc to figure out what are the principles that a Cardboard Cleric embodies. What does the domain stand for, and who are the deities that would fit this kind of domain? There's a lot of open-ended questions in there that I think are gonna crystallize over time. For now, I want to focus on the technical aspect of level 1. At first level, you gain proficiencies, and I think for a Cardboard Cleric it does make sense to be proficient with light and medium armor, as well as tinker tools. I did consider calligrapher tools for a while, but I think tinker tools just overall makes a lot more sense. And now let's dive into the spells. I think this is where the most personality, the most difference is going to come out in a Cardboard Cleric. Normally in the expanded spells list you don't have cantrips included, but there are two things that I think just makes perfect sense for them. The first thing is papercraft, which is just a reworked version of druidcraft. With druidcraft you can tell the weather, you can magically let flowers bloom, you can create some kind of sensory effect, and you can light a candle and snuff it out, as well as up to a campfire. So the weather aspect, I think maybe you could reason with it that, I don't know, if it's very humid, your paper is gonna curl up, but I'm not sure. Maybe we can find a better option there, something that fits more the maker aspect of the whole thing. Instead of making flowers bloom or seeds pop open, that is the main feature that I want to see, is that you can create little paper figurines. You just become the origami master right away. Instantaneous, harmless sensory effect, I think there is something in there, but maybe it just needs a little bit of rewording. So I'm going to think on this aspect a little bit. And Infestation is actually a spell from Xanathar's Guide. It's another cantrip. And if you have ever stored large amounts of cardboard or paper, for that matter, anything that has a lot of layers and crevices, and leave that unattended for a while, critters are gonna be all over there. First thing you're gonna probably see is spiders, and if you leave it longer than that, some kind of bug is gonna make it their home, and eventually it's gonna decompose. That's just the nature of things. So having access to Infestation, where you create a cloud of mites or fleas or some kind of parasites, makes perfect sense to me. Plus it gives you a themed damage spell that you can use all the time. So I would put down Papercraft and Infestation definitely as cantrips that you have access to. For first level spells, I really like the idea of color spray, but maybe reworking it a little bit, as Kylie from Cantrips Media suggested, as confetti. I don't know if that is just a cosmetical thing or something that is a technical aspect, but color spray just makes perfect sense to me. You basically have access to a first level confetti cannon that you can turn on and dazzle your opponents and make them blind. All they see at this point is just red and yellow and blue flakes in the air, and you can disappear from them, or come back from behind. That is a must for me. Next on the list are Distort Value and Illusory Script. The reason for me to include Distort Value is that if you work with cardboard, you make something really cheap appear that it's more valuable. Cardboard is a ubiquitous material that you can get out of the trash that costs nothing. It's the most basic building material anybody can get. But if you do your job well, and if you are a master of your craft, you can make it appear like a really valuable, expensive thing. And that's why I think Distort Value is a good fit for this theme. With Illusory Script, you can hide messages in everyday objects and make them appear as something else. I think this ties into the trickery aspect of how a maker could relay information that is maybe not intended for the whole audience, but for specific people, for maybe some fans, you know, like it's the same thing as if you would hide some Easter eggs in the background. The people in the know, and the people who don't just have no clue. I think overall I'm leaning more towards this distort value, but you can argue with me on that. So I'm gonna put down color spray and distort value. All the cleric subclasses, as far as I know, get 2 spells per level, so let's leave it at that. But that would be my build for level 1. At level 2, we get to play around with Channel Divinity. What is the Cardboard Cleric's special relationship to the god? And like I said last week, is that the Forge Domain Cleric gets to make objects out of thin air, basically, while he sits down and meditates for an hour. And I mean, this is just... I don't want to just copy this one-to-one, but there is a lot that would make a lot of sense to have a similar feature for a Cardboard Cleric. That was level 1. Let's look at level 2 together next week. Until then, feel free to leave any kind of suggestions down in the comments. And of course, if you want to draw what a Cardboard Cleric looks like, feel free to share this with me on Instagram. I'd be very excited to see this. And there may or may not be a little surprise for you in there as well. With that, I'll talk to you tomorrow.